Well, cool. Well, let's just start kind of from the beginning, man. Like, I'd love to just hear kind of what your relationship with money has been, and maybe start like childhood, because I think that's really important. And then, how do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
find yourself relating to money in your marriage as well?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I could definitely start from childhood. Childhood, um, coming from a single parent background, I guess money and saving wasn't all that um important, I would say. You kind of just get it how you live. Um, and you just was thankful for what you got, and for what you had, and was not really complaining about the things you didn't have. And so growing up, never really seen money as something that was a priority or something that you needed to have. Not until you got into like late high school, early college. That's when you're like, geez, man, I wish I knew a little bit more about money, financing. Wish I would have known a little bit more about saving. Wish I would have known how to do this,
Yeah.
how to look at stocks, how to look at this type of stuff. And then you're just like, you know what? I'm just really behind. And that's no like slap in the face to my family or anything like that. Not at all. It was just something that we just really didn't pay any mind to, pay any attention to. We just really wasn't um, in that type of setting to where
You would
if
even,
we had a lot of right, like we didn't have a lot of money, so we really wasn't stressing over. We just had enough. And I think that's just how life was for us. We just had enough, which was awesome. I mean, when you're growing up and you just have enough, you kind of work with what you got.
yeah. Well, and as kids, because my story is actually pretty similar, but as kids, you don't think about that. Like,
No,
you're eating every day, like you're hanging out with friends, then going to school. Like, it's not even yeah, it's not even on your brain. And growing up for me, it was just my mom, so a single parent household up until I can never remember, 11 or 12. My mom got married to my stepdad, and they do really well now. But back, like, my dad was a police officer, and it was like my mom stayed home. He was making whatever police officers made 10, 15 years ago, and things were tight. But I never went without. Like, no, I didn't have like the super nice car when I was 16,
right, right, right.
whatever. It was never that. But it just, we didn't learn about stocks, dude. I didn't know what stocks were until, shoot, 8 years ago. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a true thing. Like when you're growing up and you're not growing up around it, you're just kind of like one ear in out the other, not really paying any attention to it, not even giving any thoughts about it, and then life just goes on. But it kind of slaps you in the face when you're um in college filling out all these different loan applications or trying to get a grant or something approved, and you're just going through it and you're just like, man, I'm really behind the eight ball on this.
Like,
Like,
what is all this stuff? Did you
what is this?
did you go to college?
Yeah, so I went to Dort University.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, man. And so when I was there, so it wasn't a full ride, so I got like a partial ride, like half.
Football.
And so I had to, of course, mom didn't make enough money to pay the other half, so I had to either work and take out a couple loans.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that's what I did, man. I just worked and took out loans, but I think that's when life set in. Like, this is real. This is what life is. This is how I got to manage, and then this is also how I got to survive.
Mhm.
Because you are surviving in college, and at times you're barely surviving.
Right.
I was 5 hours away from home, Northwest Iowa. And so, yeah, I got a part-time job, just started working, and just slowly paying off college, but also every new year, every fall, 4 years, took out another loan. Not a massive loan. Just took out another loan.
Yeah.
And so that kind of got me, those 4 years kind of got my mindset on what life would kind of be like out in the world, where you are by yourself, not having
Mhm.
anyone kind of overlooking what you're doing, and just learning how things actually work, what it means to have a percentage or APR on your loan, what that entails, how much you got to pay
How
back.
that feels making those.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Right. And so now it's just like, man, everything I do, like if it is something that we're not paying cash for, if it's something that we gotta have an APR or any interest rate on, like how much is the interest, like calculating how much will this
That's good.
affect me? Will it affect me if I pay it off long term, or will it affect me if I just pay it off up front? Like, and so now when you're in the midst of those things, you're just like, man, I wish there was a time when I was either early high school, late high school, that I had a financial class,
Hey,
something to
why?
teach me about. Yeah, they need to implement that. They really do.
They really
That
do.
is a class that they need to implement,
100%.
either early high school or late high school. That's got to be a requisite for you to graduate.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. And it's like
Like,
the class that you would use the most in your life.
yes.
That's crazy.
Out of all the, like, yeah, reading, writing, math, like all that stuff is great. It is something that you need because you don't want people to think you're just some idiot out here. But dude, people think you're an idiot
When
if
they
you
manage
don't.
numbers. Yes, sir.
People, I shouldn't say people would think you're an idiot. I shouldn't say that. People will definitely take advantage of you
It's true.
if you don't know
That's true, man.
interest rates, if you don't know what you're signing, if you don't know what you're getting yourself into. People will definitely take advantage of you, and it is just something that this world has become. And so if you have a class like that, but even now today, like, I don't know a lot. like
Sure.
I think I was just looking at a video the other day and just found out some differences between a 401k and a Roth
Yeah,
IRA,
yeah,
how
yeah.
much of a difference they are. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, what in the world? Like, all this time you grow up and you hear your parents like, oh yeah, I got my money in a 401k, can't wait to retire. Like, now you're just like, wait, 401k is what? Like,
Yes.
it wasn't even meant to be what it is, what people pull it all up to be. And so it's just like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so as you get older, I guess you kind of understand, man, you really got to be on your P's and Q's
Mhm.
when it comes to money, and how it works, and knowing how it works, knowing how it benefits you and how it at times don't benefit you. And so, yeah, it is something that I am learning
Mhm.
as a beginner. I would say definitely a beginner learning for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And would love to learn more about it. But at the same time, yeah. So my wife, she grew up, both parents in the home, rural Iowa, and so a lot of money problems that she dealt with was very small in compared to what I was dealing with. And so at times it feels like she kind of just, as of like now, talking married life, she kind of just spends, not really
Uh-huh.
paying attention to what she's spending money on.
'Cause she's never had, and I'm assuming here, but she's never had that like scarcity of money, maybe to the degree
Right.
that you did. And so for her, like the floor of what could go wrong is so much higher than like what you've seen, where it's like the floor is a lot lower than what you I
Correct.
realize.
Correct. It is like, look, Becca, you spend something, and look, I get it. We got money in the savings, but I don't always want to go reaching in the savings to keep our account from going negative. Like that's something I don't want to do every single time.
Yep.
And it's just like, okay, then she'd be like, okay, I'll switch out my card. I'll start using my Venmo card because I send money to her Venmo card so she could just use. And so I'll switch out the debit card for my Venmo card. I'm like, you should have been doing that in the first place. Like, I shouldn't have to tell you that, hey, you got to watch what you're spending money on. Like, I mean, I get it that you're spending money for things that we need, but at the same time, I just feel like it's almost a random buy.
Sure.
Like, it was a time, well, actually, this was like recent. She goes, I think Harmony needs a baby doll.
Yeah.
I said, a baby doll? We can wait for a baby doll. Like, that's something. And then she brings up, oh, yeah. And then there's this, they got a crib for the baby doll. They got a stroller for the baby doll. Yes. I said, hold on. Look, we can just get the baby doll. Just get the baby doll for now. Just get the baby doll and see how she does. And then we can talk about everything else. But I think that's just me growing up, not having a lot. And so I kind of just, since I don't have a lot, my mindset is the more I don't spend, the more I have. But at the same time, it's just me just holding on to it and afraid to spend it, because it's not that it is something like I'm afraid to spend it because I just don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And
100%.
I'm just afraid, like, if something do happen, we won't have the money to either pay for what that terrible cost is. Right. And so it's just like, man, I wish I was just like, yeah, just go spend it for Harmony. Like, that's awesome. That's great. We got money in the savings that we could just put it back in and just continue to save once this is all over with again. And so it's just like, but at the same time, it's just like, even when I do save and have money, my mindset is still gripped tight on the fear of just something happening. And so I'm just like, I don't think that's the right mindset to have. Like, I get it. Like, you want to save and you want to put money aside, but at the same time, you're just like, man, at times it feels like I'm just hindering myself in a bit, because now I'm just like cheapening out on things, and you're just like, man, that's not the way you should have done that. Like, you should have been a little bit better at that and just live life and just, but you see, talking about it is easy. I could tell you the things that I'm thinking about and that I'm afraid of, but at the same time, it's just like, you know what? I don't know if I can go with just like letting the money just go and just being spent on, and it's not like being spent on things that are just like worthless. Like, it's being spent on just household things that are needed. And I'm still so tight about it when I know it will benefit us as a family. So I was just like,
I can't tell you, man, I've been in the exact same boat as you are, because that's my default always. Like, you can even ask Lily, and I'll tell you a little bit about like our full story here in a second, but it's something I still struggle with today, man, is like every dollar. And I don't know, because I didn't grow up like super poor where I was worried about like meals or anything, but I did grow up where I moved out really early. I moved out at 19 and was on my own. I didn't go to college. So when I moved out, I was just like, I was out, and I had to really manage my money. And it increased the more that I started learning about money, because I was so focused on like the saving or the investing. And, there's part of that that's good, right? Like, when we were in debt, we were in $40,000+ of debt. When we were in debt and we weren't making money, and like Lily was staying home and we had a kid, it was beneficial for me to be like, yo, we cannot spend, we need to pay off this debt. But after we got past that, it was not beneficial for me or my marriage at all. How stingy I was with money. And that was such a huge struggle. One thing that really helped me, man, was budgeting. And I want to talk about that just a little bit. But let me tell you a little bit about me, just so you know, kind of what I've gone through and kind of what I've experienced. So, like I mentioned, my story is very similar to yours, single family household for, till I was 11, and stepdad was in the picture, and we didn't make a lot of money as a family, not a lot of financial literacy talks, like there wasn't a lot of, like, I definitely knew how money worked and I knew how bills worked, but I didn't know I didn't know what a 401k was. I didn't know what a Roth IRA was. I didn't know what stocks were. Like I didn't know any of that, man. And so and I got married really young. So I got married when I was 20. We had Wesley when I was 21, I believe, and Lily was 19, I think, like just almost 20, but she was 19 when we had Wesley. And so it was like a lot of responsibility piled on early on. And then we just started getting into debt. Like we had everything. We had credit card debt. We bought when I was making, it was $40,000 to $50,000 a year. We bought a $23,000 or $24,000 vehicle. Like just these stupid financial decisions. When we bought our house, we put a bunch of money on the Nebraska Furniture Mart card. Like it was just a lot, And so I found myself with $40,000+ in debt, only making money, and then it would just all leave. Making money, all leave, right? And so I started getting really frustrated with that, because I started realizing that this would be my forever if I kept this up. Like I would never get ahead. I would never accomplish some of the goals that I wanted to accomplish. This is just what it was going to be. And so I actually started listening to Dave Ramsey. And I was just gobbling it up, man. Like I was listening to the podcast all day long. I was watching YouTube videos all day long. It was you can ask Lily sometime, like it just consumed my whole brain. And that's kind of what kicked me into the debt payoff deal. We paid off our debt completely. It was a couple years back. But throughout that process, like I just love learning, so I was just reading books constantly. And then I kind of expanded out to watching other YouTube videos and what have you. And that's kind of where I got now. It helped that, my career, I was making advancements, I'm in sales, and then I got into management. Now I'm a director. And so like that helps, right? And that's certainly an important piece, in my opinion, is like you have to have, I shouldn't say you have to have the income, or it's helpful to have the income to get ahead. It just is. But kind of learning that balance, though, is like my most recent lesson, where yes, we need to look 30, 40 years down the road towards retirement and these goals that we have, but what's the point if we're not enjoying it now?
Right.
Because a lot of people, dude, it's the opposite. A lot of people, it's like YOLO, like you only live once. I'm going to spend all my money. I'm not going to worry about down the road. But then when they turn 60, they find themselves sacking groceries because they weren't disciplined throughout their life. So let me ask you this, just to touch on the balance piece. Do you guys budget? Like what's budgeting look like for y'all?
So we put about $300 a month into our savings.
Okay.
And then everything else just goes off to paying. We did the exact same thing. We took off a Nebraska Furniture Mart card once we bought our house. And so we're paying off a Nebraska Furniture Mart card at the moment. Paying off a car as well. And so those are, and then also mortgage, of course.
Of course, yeah.
And then some student loans. Those are the two: Nebraska Furniture Mart car, mortgage, 2 student loans. So those are the 5 things that we have.
Okay.
That we're.
So budget wise, have you ever sat down? Is Rebecca your wife's name?
Yep.
Okay. Have you ever sat down with her and like either on an Excel sheet or a notebook or whatever works best for y'all, and like written down, all right, so here's what we bring home, like after tax, after insurance, like total amount that we bring home that we see in our bank account each month, and listed out all the line items of everything that comes out? So
we did it when we first got married, but we haven't did it in a very long time. Which we should probably need to do that because we've done so much more within that time frame, with pay raises and everything else.
Yeah, right.
and things have changed. She's, of course, when she had Harmony, there's doctor bills and stuff in there as well. So
every which way. Yes.
So yeah, I think so that would probably be. Let me write that down. We probably need to redo that
Yeah.
Excel
So
work.
there's a couple of benefits to budgeting. Obviously, it's really beneficial to know, like down to the dollar, how much you're bringing in, not what your salaries are, but like how much you're actually seeing in your bank account each month.
Right.
In addition to seeing all the line items of things that come out, because there's a couple things that'll happen. Number one, you might be like, oh man, like we got a lot more money than I thought we did. Like we can have some fun and start set some goals. Or you'll be like, oh shoot, like we only have like $5 a month left over after everything. We got to pay.
Yeah, it's like that's what we are. We're like 1 month we'll do really well. Then the other month we'll be like, geez, where did everything go? But then like you kind of realize that like we kind of, when we go out to eat or go out on a date, we kind of just spend money. It's not like we really don't even think about it until it's like too late. Like, man, we really shouldn't have spent that much money on that date. Like, that was really silly of us to do that. But then we do it again like the very next week.
Here's the deal, like, and with budgeting, dude, it changes every month, and you're gonna have months that you do great. There's months, man, like this month in particular has been awful for us because our guilty pleasure, my wife's love language, is food. She loves eating out, and I enjoy it too. Like, it's a fun thing to do on the weekends. We always overspend with that. But one thing that I think will help you personally is whenever you write this budget out, create a line item for fun money. Create a line item for the money that you are going to spend on whatever the heck you want to spend on, and you're not going to feel guilty about it. And when you give yourself permission to do that, dude, a lot of that guilt and like frustration and micromanaging that you do with money, because trust me, I do the exact same thing. I struggle with that. It alleviates, because you're like, hey, listen, Becca, we have $200 this month that we're spending on whatever the heck we want to spend on. So what would you like? So I think that'll be super helpful. The foundation. Okay, let's take a step back, because there are some steps that I think are super important to hit. So I think the foundation to any successful like personal finance strategy is goals, right? Because if at the end of the day, you and Becca's goals are, hey, we just want to enjoy as much in the now as we can. Like, in theory, man, if that's what you guys both want, that's not necessarily bad. Like, you're going to be compromising on some things in the future, so I wouldn't recommend it. But if that's how y'all want to live your life, that's fine, and you can build a strategy around that. If your strategy is, hey, we want to buy a 4-bedroom home in whatever different part of town, or we want to whatever. So have you guys ever talked about what your goals are collectively and individually?
So I know what we. Hey, Chief, no.
Them dogs.
Dude, man. But I know what we've talked about was to have just a good chunk of change in our savings account, to where if something happens, we wouldn't be worried about anything. We'll be able to handle it with like no hard feelings, and just be able to just sit comfortably. But I do know goals for us. One, I think this year, one of our goals was, this is our last year, hopefully, paying off our last car, and then both cars will be paid off. And then another goal was, well, these are all short-term goals. So our 2 short-term goals was to pay off a car that I think we have $3,000 or $4,000 left on. And then our Nebraska Furniture Mart card, which we have, I want to say maybe $1,500 or $1,800 left on it. But that's also a thing. Like, we could pay off both or one of these right now, but it's just like I'm so much rather like, hey, just let it continue to come out each month, and then at the year's end, whatever's left, I could just pay it off. And then I'm just like, but man, like I could just get rid of it right now.
What should I do? That's a tough decision.
Yeah, I could get rid of it right now, but it's just like I don't want to. Like I would much rather just take the monthly payments. Like I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so but those are the two short-term goals that we had. And then long-term goal, of course, is to just be debt-free. And hopefully, well, what we were doing before we at the start of this year, we were paying about like an extra $150 on our mortgage. But then we had what happened? Was it the taxes? What happened?
The taxes
somehow
taxes went up on your property.
Yeah, it went up because our house sat for so long, no one was in it. And then they appraised, well, they submitted something on an odd year. I talked to them. I forgot. I should have took notes on this. They do it every odd year where they come and just look at your house and see where
property value appraisal went up. This happened to us.
Yeah.
Too. And so the taxes annually went up, which you pay on every month. And so
right.
30, 40.
And so our escrow balance didn't cover that.
Yep.
And so we were basically in the negative at the start of the year. And so that's something that's also another short-term goal that we got to get up, because now it's just they just roped it into our mortgage until we pay it off within the year. And so say that again.
It happened to us this year too, and that's probably gonna happen, especially with this market, dude, because
that's what the lady was saying. It's probably gonna happen every odd year. Like you're gonna see an increase. And I'm just like, just let us know ahead of time. Like let us be prepared for it, so we're not caught off guard and having to catch up. And so, but that's another thing though, just like having money in the bank account for stuff like that. Just like if something like that happens, you're not frustrated, you're not upset. Hey, we got the funds to do this, so we could just go ahead and pay it off, and you don't got to tie it into our mortgage. Our mortgage could just stay the same, and our escrow balance could just go up to whatever it needs to go up to help us the following year, however much that will help us. And so
let me touch on a couple things, because I'm taking some notes and I want to make sure I'm hitting on everything. So I want to talk about, there's a couple of debt payoff methodologies, and I want to talk to you about that. But hitting on goals. So you said being debt free is like the overall goal. I think that's an awesome goal to have. But let's take it a step further. Why do you want to be debt free? Like, what about that is appealing?
I think the appealing part is because I feel like once I'm debt free and done paying off everything, I think then my wife and I could go on a little bit more vacation. Like we could just have fun between us and family, and not having to have money stretched to make that work, and not having to feel like we're just compressed and not being able to spend what we have. And so that's something that say hi.
Hello. Hi. Gosh, so big already.
Dude, she is huge.
Crazy.
Say hi.
Look at your hair.
Why are you like that? No.
That's awesome.
But yeah, for sure, just not being felt like we're compressed with money and being able to just spend it at will. And I think that's where I am right now. Like although you have money saved up, you're just like, man, I feel so compressed. If I spend this, I feel like I'm falling behind again. And I think that feeling is the feeling that I don't want to always have.
Yeah, so there's two things, right, that you mentioned. So there's enjoying life. You want to just be able to like enjoy some different things with your family. Totally.
Right.
I think that's a great goal to have. The second goal, and it seems like the second goal is the true one, like the one that resonates most with you, is you want that mental peace. You want peace.
Yes.
Yep. And I get it, man, because that's where I was too. Like I didn't have peace. I was worried, what if I lost my job? What if I,
Yep.
what if the roof needed to be fixed? What if the
Yes.
like stressful, dude? It's like this thing that weighs on you all the time, right?
Yep.
And dude, that's what you need to tap into when you start to put some of these things in practice that we'll talk about to try to get to that point, is because it's gonna suck, and it's not gonna happen in like 6 months, right? It's gonna be something that you're probably gonna work at for a year or 2 years. But when you get to the point where you're frustrated and want to give up and just like go out and binge and eat a bunch of food and like spend all your money, you remember like you're going for that peace. Because for me, dude,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't, the reason why I try to stay diligent with my finances and that I keep learning about it is not because I want to buy like a mansion and have a
No.
Lamborghini. And like I don't desire that.
Could care less about that, honestly.
I don't really care. What I care about though is freedom and peace. I want to be able to not
Yes.
have to worry about losing my job or worry about having to work a job till I'm 70 that I hate, or being able to like enjoy go on vacation. Like
Yep.
that's what I press for. So that, I think that's your worthwhile goal, man. I would do something. I'd make a note of this. I would write down all of your goals with your wife, but I would really talk to your wife about why that mental peace matters so much to you, because that she has to, for her to get on board, she has to feel that as well, and it has to be
Mm-hmm.
something worthwhile for her. Like if that mental peace thing doesn't resonate with her, you got to be able to dig in with her and figure out what does. And that's what I learned with Lily too. It's like I kept talking about like, well, Lily, do you know that compound interest, if we invest this much, it's gonna, because I'm like, I'm a nerd. You know what I'm saying? And to her, that didn't resonate at all. But there were a couple things with her that did resonate. She's like, I think I get it now. Like, I think I want to be on board with this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first step. Set your goals with your wife. If you're not unified, it makes it very difficult. Okay. So debt payoff strategy. There are two methodologies. There are more than two, but there's two really popular ones. One's called the debt snowball method, and one's called the debt avalanche method. Have you heard of either of those before?
No.
Okay, like nah, man. I'm just speaking a foreign language.
Right.
Okay. All right. So the debt snowball method is you basically stack your debts smallest to largest, right? So you put the smallest on top, you put the largest on the bottom, and everything in between. And you make all the minimum payments for everything. Obviously, you never want to get behind, but you put all of your extra money, and I'm talking all of it, like you're pretty bare bones when you're paying off your debt. You put all that extra money at the smallest debt and you pay that off as fast as possible. Okay. Then when that's gone, which usually happens pretty quick because it's usually your smallest debt, you take all of your extra money plus the minimum payments on that small one, you put on the next smallest and the next smallest,
Mm-hmm.
next smallest. Okay. This methodology is, the pros of it, I think, are it's great to keep you motivated, because you're going to start seeing yourself making that traction and paying those things off. And you're going to be like, oh man, like we only have two more things to pay off. Like, let's go. Like, let's keep pressing. Right. The other methodology is called the debt avalanche. And it's called the debt avalanche methodology. And you don't stack them smallest to largest. You stack them highest interest rate to smallest interest rate. Okay. The people that gravitate toward this methodology, they understand the math of it, and they like paying off the highest interest debt first because they're getting rid of the highest interest stuff first, right? You're saving money on the pay towards your interest rate. Now, that methodology makes the most financial sense. However, I don't like it as much as the debt snowball. Reason
Yeah, I
being,
think I would much rather go debt snowball for sure.
I think that personal finance is way more like psychology than it is math. I think that if you're able to keep yourself motivated and see yourself making progress faster, you will be more successful paying off your debt than if you just do it by numbers, right? So after you make your budget and you see how much you have it coming in, you know exactly how much you have coming out, and then you're going to establish your monthly margin. So you're going to know how much you have left every month. Okay.
Okay.
You're going to take that, and then you're going to look at your debts, and you're going to say, all right, how long is it going to take me to pay off this first smallest debt? Then how long is it going to take me to pay off the second? And then all of a sudden you're going to know, like, hey, if we do this plan, we're going to be debt free by whatever, 6 months. Right. So let me ask you this. What's your smallest debt that you think you have off the top of your head?
It's probably the Nebraska Furniture Mart card, which is about $1,500.
Okay. And do you even know, you might not know this and that's okay, but do you even know what your monthly margin is? Like how much you have left at the end of each month after bills?
We probably have, once everything comes out, depending, I guess it's different. Because how I did it was I kind of made it to where the mortgage is on one payment. So like if Becca gets paid on the 8th, the mortgage comes out on the 8th. And then a bunch of small bills comes out on my paycheck, which is like water bill, light bill, phone bill. And so then but we do, which is always crazy to me, we do have a free paycheck, but it doesn't ever seem like we have a free paycheck.
Sure.
which is my paycheck at the end of the month. Yeah. And I just think that's just because we don't really have, like, this is helpful because we don't really have, we have goals, but we don't really have anything to tell us that, hey, we should be putting money off towards this. So we just kind of spend it, just happy go lucky. And spending, I mean, like, my wife spends it on things that
Listen, dog, I know you bought that PS5, dog. Don't be putting it off on your wife now.
But no, it's more so just like just going out to eat and just spending it on things that at times there's just like things you don't really need.
Of course.
And then it's also just putting, and then I think this is where I also get in trouble at a lot is I told myself at the beginning of the year, I said, any leftover money, I'm just going to put it towards the things that we need to pay off. But instead what happened was I just put it into savings.
Yep.
And it's just trapped in there. And I'm not like, it's just like a mindset. Like once it goes in, I don't want to take it out.
Yep.
And so I think I just need to have a better mindset of like all the extras that we have, I don't transfer into savings. I just transfer it into the loans or the smallest loan that we have. And just.
So let's talk about this. How much, and I'm getting all up in your business, and if you don't,
yeah,
that's fine. How much do you have in your savings account right now?
We have about $6,000 or $7,000 in there.
That's phenomenal, dude. Congrats. That's great. That's really cool. So Dave, I'll tell you what Dave Ramsey would say, because I think Dave Ramsey has a really good method for paying off debt. I don't fully agree with it. So I'll give you my version after. So Dave Ramsey says, doing this debt snowball method, you only have $1,000 in your savings account, and you only keep $1,000 in your savings account. So if you were talking to him, he would say, take all of that extra $5,000 and throw it at your debt right now. That's what he would say. Okay. I don't know how much I agree with that. I don't know if $1,000 is enough of a cushion while you're paying off all your debt. What I would probably do is I don't think, I'm going to combine it kind of a couple topics. An emergency fund is usually recommended to be 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses. Okay. So, and you're going to find out what your expenses are when you do your budget.
Right.
Typically you want to have 3 to 6 months in an emergency fund of your expenses. That's your safety net. That's if you lose your job, Becca loses her jobs, an emergency.
Right.
We just had, luckily I had an emergency fund. We just had to do $7,000 worth of electrical work in our house.
Oh,
that came out of the emergency fund. Now I'm working on getting it back. Right. But dude, what I would strongly consider, and I'm not in the business of giving recommendations, but what I would strongly consider is knocking that emergency fund or that savings account down to like $3,000 and just paying off your debt, smallest to largest, starting off with that.
Okay.
I know that freaks you out, but if you really think about it, like typically there's not like a catastrophic emergency that's gonna really.
So I have a question. So if I, because it does freaks me out. So the money that we have going into our savings, because we just started saving, honestly, towards the end of last year.
Great. Well, you made progress quickly then, man. That's great.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because literally, like, all the extra money I just put in our savings, and it does not leave. Like, it just stays there.
Yep.
And so we have about $100 besides that first week. So our pay periods are the 8th, the 15th, the 23rd, and the 31st. It's crazy how they fall in weeks like that.
Yeah.
But that's our pay weeks.
Yeah.
And so every week besides the 8th, I put about $100 into our savings. And then all the extra I put into our savings as well. So with this, when I do this $3,000 towards the debt, am I also not taking away the $100 per month?
That would be the plan, because you'd be throwing that extra $100 every week at your debt as well. Now,
so it's not, so we're not at this point, like so we're not saving, so we're just paying off debt.
So think about it this way, and here's the deal, man. If it really freaks you out, you don't have to do it, right? Now, what I would recommend you do, because 6,000 is healthy, dude. Like 6,000 is pretty healthy to have just sitting there, right? For an emergency fund. You gotta stop throwing money into savings though, and start paying off the debt. Stop putting money into savings where you're at. You got to get that out of your head. And here's the rationale. You have a bunch of debt that's accumulating interest. Okay. Yes. Every time you throw that money into savings, that money's not growing. It stays the same. Okay. But yet all of your balances are getting larger and larger. You're going backwards every time you throw money into savings right now and you don't pay off debt. You're getting further and further from your goal, right? So you need to the only guaranteed return out there in investing is paying off debt that has interest on it, dude. And if you pay off something that has 20% interest, you automatically got a 20% return on that investment, guaranteed. And any investor in the world would take a 20% return on their money, right? So start thinking about it that way. Like, I know it feels like you're not gaining any traction, like you're not seeing that savings account build up because you're not putting money into it, but you are gaining traction, dude. You're going to start making your money work for you instead of other people having your money work for them. That's what you're doing by paying off debt. So if it really freaks you out, which I get it, if it really freaks you out to take away from that savings account, just say, all right, we're leaving the savings account where it's at. All the extra money now is going toward debt.
Okay.
That's kind of a good in between. Because whenever you get past, and it's really fun, but whenever you get that debt paid off, hey puppy, man, your pup looks just like mine, except yours is gray and mine's tan.
Gray.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Dallas. He's a pit bull Great Dane mix.
I remember Dallas. I remember seeing him as a pup with his ears.
Yeah.
Whenever you get past the debt, you get to start building true wealth, man. And that's where it gets really exciting. You know, when you don't have you're not paying anybody else, you get to pay yourself. And that's when you get to start investing. And that's when you get to start seeing your money grow when it's sitting there. And that's what we want to get to really quickly.
Okay.
So we got that. And it's really going to start making a lot of sense. And the pieces will start coming together for you when you get that budget and you know how much extra you have down to the dollar every month.
Okay.
One thing that I want to note that you brought up, you said you were paying off your mortgage early, even when you had other debt. Don't do that.
Yeah, we were putting about 150 in our principal balance.
Yep, don't do that.
Don't do that?
especially when you have other debt. Your mortgage rate, and I'm just going to guess based off of when you bought, is probably anywhere from 3 to 5%. Is that in the ballpark?
Yeah, it's a 3.625.
Okay, so you have a great mortgage rate. The debt that you have probably ranges anywhere from maybe 0%. I don't know if your Nebraska card has 0%, but 0% maybe up to, I don't know, 15 or 20%.
Yeah, the car is at 6%.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's still really low. Do you have any like actual credit cards that you use?
We do use a credit card. It is how we kind of do it is we kind of tie all of our bills into our credit card,
Oh, yeah.
and then we just pay off the credit card at the end of the month each month.
Great. So you don't hold any credit card debt month to month.
No,
You're ahead of the
no,
game, brother.
no.
Ahead
Those are the only 5 significant things that we have
Yep.
in debt, which is of course the mortgage being the most.
And dude, the mortgage is the thing that you want to pay off last. And people, dude, most people don't even pay it off. Most people just keep their mortgage because it's cheap money, right? When you can borrow money at 3.6%, a lot of people like to just keep that because when you start investing, the average return of the S&P 500, and I'm not going to load you up with investment stuff because we're starting a little bit further earlier in the road. Well, we can have another call when we talk about investing because
Yeah.
But you can easily return 7 to 10% a year on average in the stock market. So a lot of people opt to invest before they even pay off their mortgage because they're earning more than like the 3.6% that you have on your mortgage.
Okay.
So we'll get into investing on another call. But I would strongly recommend don't pay off your house early at this point. Work on the other debts. Cool.
Perfect.
Okay. So then when you get debt free, you're going to work on building that savings account up into an actual emergency fund. And you want it to be that 3 to 6 month worth of expenses. For you all, because you have a kid, usually I say, hey, make it closer to that 6 month mark.
Okay.
And usually it's going to be, I don't know, man, it's anywhere from like $8,000 to $12,000, something like that. It's not a ton of money.
So like once you have that money, that 3 to 6 months in your emergency fund, do you continue to put money in there or do you just stop there?
You stop there and then you start investing.
Okay.
Yep. Then you start investing. And that's where it gets fun. Because then you're going to be like, yo, I put, whatever, $10,000 into this investment. And in 5 years, it grew to $15,000 and I didn't have to do nothing. That's when it becomes fun. And that's how the wealthy become wealthy, dude. I'm going to give you an example. Have you ever, I'm pulling up. Are you familiar with what compound interest is?
A little.
Okay. So compound interest is essentially interest that you're making on interest. So an example would be, say you invested $100 and at the end of the year, you made 5%. Well, at the beginning of that following year, you have $105. Make another 5%, but now it's on $105, right? And then the following year, it's on 100, right? So it compounds. It's an exponential.
Gotcha.
Yep. So I'm going to show you something. How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, cool. Me too. All right. So let's just say you want to retire kind of at the typical retirement age of 65. All right. And let's say that from today, you start investing just $500 a month, starting from zero. Actually, I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm doing. I love doing this exercise. It's really fun. I geek out about this stuff, dude. I'm such a nerd. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're starting off. Your initial investment's nothing. You're going to invest $500 every month, and you're going to do it for 35 years. Okay, and what you're going to find too is that this number is really low. When you're not paying anything into debt, and as time, you guys are going to get pay raises or new careers, and you're going to make more money.
Yeah.
I can be able to do a lot more than this, but we'll just keep it at 500. Estimated interest rate, we're just going to say 7% that your money is making by being invested. Where this number comes from is, again, the S&P 500, which is a collection of companies. It's the 500 largest companies in the United States, right? So it's a good group of companies to follow to see like what their growth is, right? It's been around for, I think, 80 plus years. On average, it makes 7 to 10% a year. Some years up, some years down, but on average, it's about 7 to 10%. And we're going to say this compounds annually, right? So if you do this, by the time you retire, you're going to have $830,000. Okay, that's the power of compound interest. So let's just say, because this is really closer probably to what it'll be. So let's just say $1,000 a month, right? Seems like a lot when you don't have much debt, you don't have much that you're paying. Like even think, man, like you have no car payment. There's a couple $100 right there, right?
Yeah,
you have
$273 a month.
Exactly. What is it?
Like 273.
Oh, I thought you said 73. I was like, dang, that's small.
No, 273.
Gotcha.
I'm off.
So check this out, bro.
Oh, wow.
$1.6 million. That's what investing does. That's what compound interest does. That's where you want to be, man. Like that's what you want to start doing. And the cool thing is when you're 65, do you see that total contributions number at the bottom? Can you see that?
Yep. 420.
You will only have put in 420, and that 420,000 will turn into almost $7 million. That's powerful.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm. And that, dude, and it doesn't take a lot, man. And like once you start getting to this point when you're investing, every other amount of money that you do, you can have fun with, dude. Like you don't have to feel guilty about it.
Mm.
You know that you're taking care of your future, so you can also take care of yourself now and your family now, and you can buy your daughter the doll with the crib and all this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's why I get so passionate about it, man. It's not about getting rich, dude, and it's not about like, you know, being uber wealthy for me. It's just about I know what it feels like to be in debt and to not know what to do with money and to feel lost. And when you can get that stuff in order, I know how free that can feel. Like I remember explicitly when I was listening to Dave Ramsey, like I would literally get emotional sometimes just driving out by myself in the car, thinking about the day where I would pay off that last bit of debt, because I know how much of a burden that can be. And dude, this is so attainable for y'all. Like it's not rocket science. You know, if you spend a little bit of time planning and dreaming together, you can get to the point where you're like, see, changing your family tree, dude. Who in your family do you know that has $1.7 million?
Bro, don't nobody even in my family own a house.
Exactly. Right? So you're already changing the family tree. There ain't nobody in my family has $1 million either. But I know that my wife and my kids are really happy that I spent the time to learn this stuff when they are older. Be able to bless a lot of people. You know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I would love to do a call, maybe a different one with you to talk about investing, because there's a lot to unpack there. But are there any questions about, there's a lot that we covered. Are there any questions I can answer?
Yeah, man. So I guess what got you interested in this? Like, what was the aha moment?
There were a couple. The first interest I had was that I was tired of sucking with my money. You know, I was tired of feeling the stress every day of having to pay off a bunch of crap and not ever making any progress. You guys at least are saving, dude. Like we had no savings, bro. When we were $40,000 in debt, we had nothing. And so I was fearful, I was stressed, I was tired. So that kind of spurred me to start to listen to Dave Ramsey. When it really started when I really started to get excited is when I started investing really small. So there's this app called Acorns. I was talking to you and Zach and everybody about it.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're here yet. You're close. But I started investing $5 every Friday because I was broke as a joke. I had no money. but I started putting $5 every Friday into an investment. And I remember I opened the app up one day. I had forgotten about it. And there was like $800 in there. And my money had grown like 10% from me doing nothing. And I got dividends, and I didn't even know what dividends were. And essentially what they are is, when you own stock, a lot of these companies every quarter will pay their shareholders back like a small percentage. Sometimes it's like 3% of what you have invested with the company, but they'll like pay you back just for owning the stock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was scrolling and I was like, what's like this dollar? There's like $2. Like I got these dividends. So I researched and I'm like, oh, I understand now. I understand. And I started to like run these compound interest calculators and I'm like, oh, so if I invest only $500 or $1,000 a month, I'll be a millionaire by the time I retire. Okay, it's game on.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's one day I'll be there.
You will be there, man. There's no doubt in my brain. There's no doubt in my brain.
One day.
What else? Any other questions?
No, I think that's all the questions, man. Well, just that one, honestly.
Okay. Well, what I'm gonna do, dude. Well, hopefully this is valuable. Hopefully you took something.
No, dude, it was very valuable for me, for sure. Yeah. I think I'm about to go talk to Becca right now as soon as we get in this call.
There you go.
That's for sure.
Love it. I'm gonna hold you accountable just because we're buddies. And next time I see you, I'm gonna ask if you got that budget. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna share with you. Let me write a note of this. I'm gonna share the Excel file that I use. It's a Google Doc. And it's like all these categories pre-filled out that you can just type in what you spend on these, like electric bill and car bill and all that.
Okay, perfect.
It's a good template. So share budget. Excel doc. All right, man. I will let you go. It's past 9. All right, Leonard. It was good, man. I really appreciate you letting me do this.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate you inviting me in on this call.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Have a nice night, dude.
All right, brother.
See ya.